Hello, my name's Kat. I'm the managing director of a Brighton-based software company called DabApps. Dab means design and build. It doesn't mean anything else. It wasn't my idea for a name. So I've been working at DabApps for about 9 years. I had definitely didn't have a technical background when I started. I'm not a programmer, but I think I know enough now after kind of 9 years or so in the industry to have some relatively technical conversations. I've never really studied anything, just sort of went traveling and then somehow ended up getting some proper jobs. And then I was made MD in October last year, so I'm pretty new to the role as well. I am very much a generalist, so hopefully can pass on some useful tips to people.
Hi, I'm Rose. I'm on the leadership team and one of the founding members of Sky Labs, which is Sky's internal corporate innovation team. Before that, I've been in product forever. I think before it had actually a name. So sort of late 90s, before the first dot-com crash. And I started out, my degree was in French and politics. But my first job, which I remember applying for from all the adverts in the back of Broadcast magazine when I was sitting in Bristol Library, and my first job was in the satellite industry, which immediately chucked you into the tech stratosphere, literally. I guess the first part of my career was all B2B product, very sort of, telecoms, wholesale telecoms, as well as the satellite stuff. And then after kids, it was all B2C. So very much about big consumer brands, mobile, so very different flavor. And in between, I had 3 kids very closely together, and I couldn't commute. So I started my own little business at home. So there, I guess I was putting it into practice for myself, which was a completely insane thing to do. But it was quite useful because when I got to work in big, gnarly organizations, I got to learn how all the bits fit together, which when you're in very siloed organizations is not obvious. But that's a sort of summary of my path here.
So just for anyone who might not know, B2B, B2C, just aware acronyms.
So business to business, business to consumer. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carlotta, and my main job is with Shopify. Are you familiar with Shopify? Can I get a raise? Yeah, most people, great. So I work in the partnerships team at Shopify. I've been with them for about 2 years now. And how did I get here? It's been a bit of a long story, but I'll try to keep it short. So I started my career in startups in Silicon Valley, which is a bit random. And there's more background to it. And that was a good 13 years ago. And working in startups at the time was absolutely incredible. If you think about like the programs, the TV shows and stuff like that, it was exactly like that. Genuinely, like the whole networking thing and, the founders everywhere. And that was extremely exciting. So I was always kind of exposed to this kind of external stakeholder management type of roles. I was still a student when I started working for a few startups. I came back to the UK afterwards. I got my master's in Sweden, and then I came back to the UK. I studied in Scotland before. And my career actually started in media agencies. So I worked for like Mediacom, Zenit, like those large media conglomerates. I did that for a few years. And then, I kind of realized that I wanted to go back to the whole tech side of things. So I was kind of missing it. And I transitioned onto Oracle. Oracle had products for ad tech, so advertising technology. So transitioning from what I already had, which was a media background, and moving onto the tech side of things, which is something that I highly recommend. You leverage what you already have and transition onto that most adjacent industry. So I was in ad tech for a few years. Again, I was leading some brand partnerships. So with like the large, big brands that you can, think about, like CPG type of brands, like fast moving consumer goods. And then after that, Shopify approached me 2 years ago to join the partnerships team, which means I work with large design and build agencies in the UK who build on Shopify and help merchants of all sizes build and grow their business online. And that's my day job. I'll be very quick. Then I'm a career coach with School 16, which is a little startup based in New York. I help underrepresented groups land technology, like jobs in technology that are not focused on coding, essentially, so business roles. And then I teach a Sussex once a year, and I love it. And I'm a board on a little startup in technology. So everything that is tech, I'm a huge advocate, and I'm hoping to have a chat with you afterwards. Okay, I'll stop now.
Where do you get all your time from?
You know what? A lot of calendar management. A lot of it.
Amazing. Okay. So I'm the COO of Switchplane. So that's basically managing all the operational elements of the business. So finance, HR, marketing. So very much the non-tech side. How did I end up there? Well, I mean, my career was completely meandered, and it wasn't that I decided I wanted to do tech from the start. I just that's where I've ended up. So I studied psychology because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was interested in it. I was kind of a nosy person. I've worked for local government. I worked for an occupational psychology firm doing their sort of marketing, email marketing as it was then. Mainly, not so much digital marketing around at that time. And then I was the director of a marketing agency for a little while. So I was doing a lot of content generation. So in all of those roles that I held, and I was there for a few years at each one, I just built up so much experience in some of those soft skills I was talking about. They're all sort of smaller organizations, and I'm kind of biased towards working for smaller companies because I feel like you get so much exposure to the whole business. You're working side by side with the MD, and you're involved in quite high level strategic decisions from quite early on. If you lean towards that way, you get to understand the workings of a business. So I feel like I've just built up so many of those soft skills over my time working in those smaller organizations, that coming into the role that I'm in now, I've been able to apply all of that and spread it into all of those different business function areas that I now look at. So although my career has meandered, every role that I've taken on has given me something, has given me value, and I've been able to utilize all of those skills. So I wouldn't really have had it any other way, because I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I've just enjoyed the journey. It's very cheesy, isn't it? I love every role gets you involved in something, and now look, I'm sitting here talking to you guys, which is just an amazing experience as well. And it's funny because when I left school, I did think about wanting to be a careers advisor, and now I'm doing this. So I think this might be my journey. But anyway, so that's my journey story. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. A real journey for everyone. I always feel like such an underachiever whenever I interview my panels. A question for you guys. You're all in leadership roles, and you all are responsible for people and bringing people through the ranks and supporting people and so on. What do you look for when you're bringing on new staff into your teams? What are the key attributes that you seek out in someone joining your teams?
I'll say some stuff. I think I guess an eagerness to learn, and to sort of put yourself out there a little bit and ask questions. As Dan said earlier, there really isn't. There's no such thing as a stupid question, and particularly if you are going into tech. Genuinely, when I started working for DabApps, I was their first non-technical hire. So I joined a team of 8, essentially engineers, and one designer. And I kind of felt for a while like I didn't really know what a lot of them were talking about a lot of the time. But if you can keep communicating and ask questions, that's a really a major kind of part of being able to, I guess, understand the kind of the area that you're working in. I definitely built up lots of good connections by going to events such as this. I had no idea what I actually kind of wanted to do. I was doing a bit of marketing, a bit of business development and events organizing and stuff in my old previous role. So I think it's being keen to learn, ask questions, get kind of, take on board from other people who are working in the sector that you're looking to move into, get as much kind of advice and chat to as many of those as you can. Definitely, if there are particular areas that you're interested in, doing courses and things like that is like massively beneficial. There's loads and loads of really good free resources available as well. And if you can kind of go along to different community events and stuff and build up those networks and relationships, that's a massive kind of a bonus as well.
I think product is such a fantastic discipline because it brings together so many aspects of the way a company runs, needing to understand your customers. There's a lot of focus on the process around creating products, but I think the more interesting and the more difficult aspect of the job, and that you're really looking for when you're interviewing people, quite frankly, is not just like how we're building the products, but are we building the right products? And that's where it gets really interesting, because you are looking for that mix of deep interest in what customers' needs are, what their goals and motivations are. And that's where it gets really interesting. So there's a lot of curiosity there. But you're also having to justify and drive decisions in the organization. So you need to be really good at, if people are going to make decisions, they need the information and they need clarity. And so you're having to, coming back to that sort of data point and the data literacy, you need to be able to talk the qualitative insights that you've heard and the sort of quantitative data that's justifying why we're working on this versus that. Because once things are in code, it's like getting that proverbial puppy for Christmas. You got to maintain it. So I think it's really important actually that there's more sort of discussion about those discovery skills and the sort of the intellectual and curiosity and empathy that comes with that.
Thank you. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so for partnerships specifically, I guess partnerships can be incredibly different from one company to the other because it depends who you're working with, and it depends if it's fundamentally a sales function or not. In my case, I'm not sales. It's a full partnerships role, but you do have to have skills that are commercial, right? So we would look for something that, is rooted into your ability to, demonstrate that you can be strategic, that you can think, what can be beneficial on one side and the other, for example. Your communication skills as well. So how persuasive can you be when you talk about certain things? And also communication is also, are you able to listen? Right? Because when you're in meetings with partners, you want to make sure that you're actually listening to their needs and addressing them correctly when, working towards a mutual goal. Resourcefulness, I would say, is definitely a key skill we would be looking for as well, because in many cases you have to be a builder. You have to build things from scratch, and you have to be okay with it regardless of the level you're going to be entering the company. And curiosity, I would probably say as well. So demonstrating that you're always looking to learn new things, and you have that ability to just discover things for yourself, because curiosity, it connects very closely to problem solving. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo all of that. And I think what sums it up for us is drive. That's what we are really looking for in our recruitment process. So what do we mean by drive? It's people who are self-motivated, who have that curiosity to learn, who go the extra mile, who are doing things in their own time just because they love it. Because it's that drive that will take you through your role, and lead you to always want to be better and develop and want the company to succeed and come up with new ideas to support it. So yeah, I would say drive is the biggest thing that we look for. And then alongside that, the detail orientation and problem solving is looking at how people approach problem solving is really important for us as well, how they choose to break problems down. So yeah, I would say they're kind of the key areas.
So what I'm hearing, and it's on the panel, but it's also with everyone I speak to, is it's not, I haven't heard the tech skills. It's what sort of sets you apart when you're coming in. It's actually all the personal skills, the team skills, the way you work, the way you communicate, that actually helps you stand out from the team, or helps you stand out from the crowd, and gets you through the door and makes you useful and helpful to the organisation. It's slightly, I don't know, different sort of question, but you're all, at some point you all started out and you were all sort of new through the door, and it was all ahead of you. What if you look back on your journey, what do you think you've had to develop the most in order to achieve in your careers and get you to where you are?
I was going to say some basic understanding of the technology that everyone that surrounded me was using did end up helping. I think it really is that ability to communicate with people and to acknowledge that you don't know everything. People don't expect you to know everything. It's okay to say you don't know. It's okay to get things wrong. I think as well, when you're leading teams, it's really important to, within reason, I guess, to let those people know that, they're going to make mistakes as well, and that's okay, and that you're there to kind of support them. You get the best out of people by supporting them, helping them to learn to communicate and build resilience. I think that's quite a big thing. And I think is potentially, going off slightly on a tangent, something we might see off the back of, the pandemic and kids not being in school for quite a long time, that kind of interaction with others, communication, building some kind of level of resilience. If people, if someone critiques your work or there's a challenging conversation, it's generally speaking not personal. It's about trying to find a solution to those problems. So I guess that was a bit of a meandering response, sorry. I think it really is communication. Like, that's just the key to everything. And pretty much every time we talk about challenges we might be having within the business, because every business has them, it's normally comes down to the fact that there's got to be a really clear process to follow, but that process is clearly communicated and it's not overly complicated for the sake of it. One thing that I would have told myself, just ask questions sooner. Just don't worry about if people think that if it's a silly question. Even if you think it is, it's not. And actually, a lot of the time, if you're having to ask the question, that probably means that communication has not been clear enough for the position that you're in the first place.
So agree with that. Most organisations, even quite small ones, everybody's operating on partial information. And so if you're the one who's having all those conversations, you're able to stitch these things together and you become the ultimate dot joiner. And that means that actually you've got a lot of value within that equation, that sort of value exchange. So that ability to have conversations with lots of people from different disciplines, whether they're commercial or they're very technical, whether it's the lawyers or the finance people, it means that obviously you need to be very zoomed in when you're getting your job done, but you can zoom right out and see what's going on at a market level or at an organization level. And that becomes really, really valuable. So I think that's important. And that all comes down to human relationships, not being a dick, or trying not to be. And although I've had my moments, and and just being useful. I think the other thing that's really helped me was I was always interested in what was emerging. So just seeing, you could start to, and again, this comes through having lots of conversations with people outside of your immediate sphere. But you could start to see things like deregulation in the telecoms market. That was clear there was going to be opportunities there. Digitization, yes, I'm that old. So when things started to move from analog to digital, it was clear that was going to be massive. It was going to change the structure of the markets and what was needed. And then with mobile apps and the iPhone launch, that really created pressures within organizations because the way that their funnel operated changed. So just be on top of those as well, because they are really the accelerators for your career.
Nice. So on my side, I would say really try and own your strengths. The sooner you figure out what your strengths are, the more intentional you can be on, with how you apply them and in which context you apply them. When you become more intentional with your strengths, and you can become more intentional with the steps you take towards going in the direction you want to go. And that connects to, doing things and telling people. Tell people what you're trying to do. Right? Tell people what you're trying to achieve, the organization you're trying to get to or whatever, because you never know where help might come from. And the last thing I would say is it's okay if you don't have it all figured out. Like 10 years ago, I wouldn't have guessed that I would be here talking to you tonight, right? I wouldn't have known where I would have ended up. Yes, of course, I had some, ideas and passion and some goals, but it's okay to just have a bit of a vision. A vision definitely helps, and then figuring out the next 3 steps is important, but not the next 20 necessarily, because things will fall into place. You'll meet people who you haven't met yet, right? And you'll become aware of things that you haven't even read about yet. And that awareness builds with time and with meeting new people, networking, coming to events like this. So putting yourself out there and creating that proactive luck, that's what can lead to where you can go to ultimately.
Yeah, it's very exciting to think, when you come to events like this, who you're going to meet, what you're going to hear, what's going to inspire you. So it is really about putting yourself forward. I think for me, I would just, if I could go back in time and talk to myself, it would be just have more confidence in yourself and your ideas. Imposter syndrome is something that I've suffered with my entire career and still do on occasion. It still pops up. You think, what am I doing here? Why should I be saying this? I don't know what I'm doing. I don't deserve to be here. It goes on in your head. But actually, if you can let that go and just have the confidence to put yourself forward, to ask that question, to put forward that idea, nobody else is potentially going to have thought of that, or they'll think, damn, why didn't I say that? That's what I was thinking. How many moments have I had where I thought, oh, if only I'd asked that question. Oh, I had the idea. But, sometimes it comes with time. It comes with experience. Don't beat yourself up if you experience that. And, it's only in the years that I've been working that I've managed to get a grip on that, really, and have more confidence. And the more confidence you get, the more opportunities you open yourself up to, and the greater your experience. So it comes with time, but I wish I could have fast-tracked it a bit. But I have no regrets. And I love doing events, meeting people, talking about new things, because it does open up so many avenues for you. So yeah, that's what I would say.
I've just thought of one more thing. Sorry. Another thing that I was just going to say that I thought of when you were talking, Donna, is it can be really scary to kind of be vulnerable and to say, oh, I am feeling like, I do have some imposter syndrome. I need some kind of support with something. I'm stuck with something. But I think most of the time people want you to, whoever might be working with you, managing you, whatever, probably wants to know if that's going on. So I think proactively asking for feedback is something that I would always, I have to remind myself to do it still, from not just people who manage you, but from your team that you're working with and all of those sorts of things. I think getting feedback from other people is a really useful thing too.
Thank you, everyone. Really good advice there. I'm going to ask one more question because I'm aware of time. Moving on, and then we'll open up some questions from the audience. Obviously, the question of diversity that came up in those stats up there, and it was actually completely by chance that we had an all-female panel. It wasn't the intentional that we did it, but we. You guys are all great leaders in your field, and that's where we ended up. So my question is, why do you think there's a lack of girls or a lack of diversity coming through into the sector? Is it what do you see in your career, and what do you think needs to change in the sector to attract more diverse groups to come through?
Just a small question.
So, big question.
Yeah.
I've got 5 minutes. A minute each.
Maybe someone else. I guess fundamentally it comes down to talking from very early ages about the capability of all kids, and not kind of shoehorning genders or any other kind of minority stereotypes into particular subject areas. I had absolutely probably quite a lot older than some of you here that are looking at early career starts and stuff, but I had no idea when I was at school about that computer science was even a thing, or that my career that I've ended up kind of doing, working in software, was even a thing. So I think that there are massive changes that are needed probably in the education sector, to be honest. So that's super easy. Other than that, I think it's really representation. The more kind of inclusive and the more diverse sort of companies, communities that we can build, the better. More diverse teams perform better. Not that it's just, obviously it's not about that, but it's about kind of, I guess, trying to remove those pigeonholes from as early ages as possible. And I think societally, is that a word? That is kind of happening, but it's very slow. So doing stuff like this, talking to as many people as possible about all the different opportunities that there are in tech, is another great way to kind of share that. I'll stop now.
I'm not an expert on why we don't have enough female coders. If I was going to have to put some money on it, I think part of it is it's very abstract to sit down and learn a programming language. So I wonder whether if you're learning while building applications that had meaning and purpose, whether that would be more attractive. So it'd be interesting to see what sort of research has been done there about how it becomes less of an abstract concept, this idea of learning development languages. From a product management perspective, I think we do a great job of attracting women and minorities into the discipline. What we're not great at is the promotion paths. And you can see that at a certain level in organizations that women become stuck. And so a lot more effort needs to go into fairness and career pathing for progression, not just the initial hiring.
Yeah, that's a good point actually on the initial hiring, because I think it's a McKinsey study that talks about numbers that are a bit more positive at entry level. It goes up to 40%, I believe, for women being in a SaaS environment at entry level, and it goes down to 22 when you're like mid-manager, and then it goes down and down and down when it comes to like senior leadership. And I think it was a Catalyst research that said that there's like a 53 or 56% better performance when there's diversity at board level, right, in organizations. So it's not just a question of like, oh, it has to be fair, you know, it has to be, everybody should be representing the board because of fairness. It's not just that. There's an actual tangible result from a business perspective, right, when there's diversity at leadership level. And when it comes to like what causes the disparity in numbers at that level, I think definitely there's an element of like education, but you know, thankfully things are changing slowly. We're talking about these things. I think a lot of it has to do with the organization themselves, in terms of, you know, if we think about parental policies, right, we still talk about maternity leave, whether we want it or not, that has an impact on women and the career path and maybe the slowdown of the career path at some point. And, you know, as long as men don't get the same attention as well as women, right, because we talk about parity for women, we need to talk about parity for men when it comes to parental leave. It's going to be very difficult to achieve that kind of equity in growth and development in career paths for you know, everybody. So talking about it from this perspective, addressing this element, and thankfully things are changing as well. There's campaigns like Pregnant and Screw that have changed things, like Mother Puka as well, who has been changing things. And this is not just for women, right? It's for anybody who decides to bring a child into their care. You know, if there's two parents, why, you know, putting the responsibility solely on one? Of course, there's a physical element, yes. We'll have to recover, right? But a father has the same right as a woman to spend time with their child, you know, and it's not just a father. If you have like same gender or relationship or shared parenting, right? Every person should have the same right to spend time with a child. So I think this is a big point that impacts the parity at leadership level.
Yeah, I'll just go back to sort of young girls. I think, I mean, again, I don't know exactly why, but something definitely happens around sort of teenage years that the aspirations change as to what they want to do. So primary school age, I think there is a real interest, and I know a lot of primary schools are doing great things now, introducing coding and computer science in a fun, engaging way. I know my daughter loves going into the computer room, and I built this thing today, and, you know, colored this thing in on the screen, and, you know, it's a real like, wow. And you know how much kids love screens. Yeah, I think the critical kind of age is when they go into secondary. I think there is a lot that needs to be done to keep that momentum going. Whether that's, you know, the schools doing more, or, you know, introducing more after school clubs in coding, and like you were saying, just continue to run it in an engaging way, getting them to build something that means something to them, that they're passionate about. And I think it just needs quite a lot of concerted effort. I'm not an expert, and I'm sure there's lots of great stuff going on in secondary schools. But yeah, we need to really push that hard, I think, to keep them engaged through secondary school. And the fact that, you know, perhaps computer science is just not seen as cool for a girl. You know, it's unfortunately probably a lot of what happens. So if we can do that, and then really engage them through work experience as well. So there's a lot of work going on in terms of trying to engage employers with the work experience programs, get more employers involved in that, get more tech companies involved in that, again, to give them that real life experience. So I am hopeful that things are going to change, because there's so much of this is being talked about. So I think it will change. It's going to take time. But I really just think we need to keep up the momentum, which I'm sure will happen, because we know how important an issue this is.
Both. Yeah, it's absolutely the route from where I sit, from the education and skill side, starts at the schools. And if you look at those, the sum up there, the data that wasn't up there was only 10% of digital apprentices are girls or female, and that's 77% white boys taking ICT courses. That's not going to change as you get into the older groups. So it has to start at school, and I think there's training for teachers and careers advisors, and then also the actual product that schools are offering. It's only A-level computing or an ICT type course, and actually I think that needs to change, and I think lots of girls would want to get into the industry. So hopefully we can impact some change with the sort of work that you guys are doing and what we're doing in Tech Native and so on. So hopefully we'll see change over the coming years. So thank you guys for answering my questions. Hopefully we have some questions, some burning questions from the floor. Would anyone like to ask a question of our panel? Hey.
So you mentioned before that jobs are, or they look for people to get into tech. Is it specific roles that are in demand, or is it across the board?
I would say it's across the board, really. I mean, currently in Eastbourne, software development is up at the top in terms of the frequency of job adverts. But, you know, very following on from that, there's a lot of project managers, scrum masters, which is just sort of running agile, customer support roles, sales roles. So yeah, it really is across the board, I would say. I don't know if any of you feel any different, but
yeah, I think probably would echo that. For us, I think where we struggle the most is to find developers basically who have got all of the different skills, I guess, that we're looking for. But yeah, there is definitely a kind of a shortage. Recruiting, as you were kind of saying before, Donna, has been really tough, I think, for particularly kind of small to medium businesses who are looking to grow their development teams in the last few years, because we can't compete with big kind of corporates who can pay much higher salaries. Everybody can work remotely, so there's kind of all of that, those kind of salary band stuff that comes into play as well. Like people being paid London salaries when they're based at home. So I think that's where the biggest gap for us is. And again, particularly, you know, I could probably count on one hand in 9 years how many applications I've had from female developers for our roles. I think that's actually true. Oh, I'm going to hand over to someone else.
I'm just saying, we're hiring at the moment. I think we've had about 20 applications, 25. There's one female. So yeah, we're living it.
We're living it. From a perspective of like larger organizations, I think it really depends on where they are in their expansion journey. So it's always good, you know, if you have an organization in mind, it's good to keep an eye on new expansion areas, markets, because usually the first hirings are for sales, right? Sales and partnerships, potentially depending on what the setup is. But the commercial element, you know, it's usually the first thing companies invest in, like those larger conglomerates.
Yeah. Good. And may I just ask another question? Getting into tech from like a non-traditional background, does that translate internationally? So if all of you went to look for a job in a different country, would you easily be able to find work? Or for anyone else getting into tech in a non-traditional way, will that be possible? Or do you think it only works within the UK?
What do you mean by non-traditional?
no degree. so to
Oh,
say.
that's fine. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Like, I think the technology industry is one of the most inclusive industries when it comes to, not having a formal education. If anything, it's almost like a selling point, because whether you want it or not, technology, whether it's a large organization or a small organization, they're going to want people who are builders, right? Who put themselves forward and find solutions. And university can't really teach you that. It's more about an attitude, right? It's how you position yourself. When it comes to international elements, I think we will probably have to drill down into what that means, because there's probably elements like, do you require a visa? Do you require, it's a lot easier to get started locally and then potentially ask for a transfer, for example, right? For organizations that offer that. It's just like maybe a bit easier. But if you have connections, for example, that's potentially a route as well. Going in through a referral instead of just sending a blank application, it's a lot easier to get in there. But we can have a follow-up conversation about this afterwards, because I work with a lot of students with the same background. And I think for me, it's like breaking down the steps. You might have to take a couple of steps before, right, in order to kind of build that narrative for yourself, so then you can go for that larger and more formal role down the line. So just, again, going back to the vision and breaking it down into pieces. Yeah,
I can add on that one as well. Certainly with product, it's global. And if you look at organizations like Mind the Product, they've got branches in hundreds of cities around the world. And I think there's probably an increasing body of best practice that you would recognize. So it's definitely very internationally transferable.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else have questions? Yeah, sure.
Hi. Sorry, I didn't know how loud this was going to be. So you're all, pretty much at the top of your careers. What was your biggest hurdle to get there, and how did you overcome it?
Thank you for the compliment, by the way. I don't feel nowhere near the top of my career right now. I'm literally like, just winging it. Biggest hurdle, I think, was just understanding my strengths personally. I had a few years towards the beginning of my career, really, where I was at a very low, very dark place, really. I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I feel so stuck. I feel like I'm not good at anything. It was not good, let me tell you. So in a way, I just surrounded myself with people who cared about me and helped me realize what I was good at, and kind of channeled me a bit in the direction that they thought would be good for me. And then I started learning a bit more and became more intentional with it. So I think surrounding myself with people who really cared and could help as well with guidance, like mentors or coaches. Mentors played a big part for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can go. It'll be a quick one. After kids, it's an absolute nightmare. But I think that's recognised. I don't need to add too much on that if you want to chat about it. But it's very difficult if you've taken a couple of years off. And you really have to rely on your network. So it's like never burn your bridges.
These are all good. I agree with all of these. Oh God, my mind's gone blank. I think for me, again, what I was saying earlier about the confidence thing, it's just, that was always my biggest hurdle. So it was just me, it was just my mindset. If you build up your confidence, there's so much more you can do, basically. It's not that easy just to be more confident, but it's about having faith in yourself. And for a long time, I sort of beat myself up because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I felt like I should, and I didn't feel like I was getting it together with my career. And you see other people pursuing areas and they wanted to do it since they were at school, and they go off and do it, and you're like, what am I doing? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Just enjoy what you do and enjoy the fact that it's not set in stone. So yeah, because it's great fun if you can let go of that fear of, oh God, I should know what I'm doing. You can just enjoy it. And mentors, again, I would say, I've had some great mentors. I haven't gone out to find mentors and paid people to be a mentor. It's just people that I've worked with who were further along in their career, and they were great friends, and they just helped me along the way. You know, you do just come across these special individuals who you build up a great relationship with, and they give you guidance for that moment in time, and you never forget it, really. So you don't always have to go looking for them. They appear, and it's good to just make the most of those relationships, really, and learn what you can from them.
I think to echo probably what all of you have said, and actually what you started by saying is, like, I feel like I'm winging it. Yeah, that I think acknowledging that and being like, oh, yeah, everyone is just kind of doing their best, and sure, there are skills that you learn, and there might be technical things that you need to know how to do, all of that stuff, but to kind of accept and acknowledge that you're not going to know everything. It's okay not to know everything. It's okay to be honest about that to other people as well. Yeah, like, we wouldn't all be sitting here if we knew all the things we needed to know to do our jobs inside out for the rest of our lives. So you just got to kind of, yeah, keep learning. And that means that you're learning about yourself as well. So.
And one thing to add that kind of connects to what you were saying, Donna, is done is better than perfect, right? It's just like, just do it. Go and talk to the person, do the thing, right? Because I think school kind of conditions us to think that we have to be good at everything, right? But then in the real world, it's not realistic to know it all. And also when you were talking about the skills earlier about like maths, physics, oh, let me tell you, I would not be sitting here if those were the skills that I needed nowadays. So, you know, that's why going back to like understanding your skills, own them. Don't worry about having to figure it all out and be good at everything. Just drill down into what you're really good at. Ask people for feedback if you're unsure, right? People who know you, maybe you work with them or study with them or family, and just build on that. Or no family, no, we're doing that. People you trust and respect, essentially. So yeah.
Thank you.
Have we got time for one? And is there any more questions? There was someone else wants to answer. There we go.
Hiya. Sorry, I just came late, so my question, maybe you must have answered it before. I have two questions, actually. The first one is, for those who can't program or code, like what other skills are you after? And then the second one is, do you guys do work visa sponsorship?
I'll answer the first one. So if we're not looking for coders, teamwork is massive. We're a small company. If I'm looking to hire someone in our operations team, we are a small unit. It's really important that you can work together with your other colleagues, because everyone gets stuck in. We have our own roles, but you need to be able to flex that and muck in and get involved and have ideas. And so teamwork and collaboration is a really, really important skill for the sort of non-tech side of the business, I would say. And we've mentioned it before, but communication is another really vital skill.
Again, it depends from role to role. We can have a conversation after the panel as well, but it also depends what you want to leverage. Are you somebody who likes to sit in the back, maybe in the background, and just crack on with things? Or are you somebody who likes to get out there and speak with people and sell the thing and, convince them about something? Or do you prefer being in the background and then just let salespeople doing the thing, right? So it's about kind of understanding what you're good at and what you enjoy doing. And there's different roles for these kind of two things. And then the second question, I think it's a bit more complex, depends from company to company and the opportunities that companies have at hand at any given point.
Build on all of that. And then that I think in addition, that ability to sort of zoom out, see the bigger picture, but always zoom right in and really understand the detail is really important, particularly around sort of product roles. But that team collaboration bit is absolutely critical. The ability to get on with people, understand their priorities. Yeah.
Good. You're good?
Thank you, guys. I think I'm going to have to call time because I really want to make sure that everyone's got a chance to chat with you guys afterwards and chat to each other. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Kat, Rose, Carlotta, and Donna for being on our panel today and being amazing, giving such great advice. Such great advice. And I think one thing that struck with me is that even though you're all leaders in your field, you're all senior leaders, at times you've all felt vulnerable, at times you've all needed help, at times you've all said, I felt like I'm winging it a little bit. And I think that's just great to know for anyone entering the industry for the first time, that that's actually perfectly normal to have those feelings, and you'll probably continue to have those feelings all the way through your career. And it's actually how you, what I'm learning from these guys, what I'm seeing here is it's how you respond and how you show up, and how you build relationships with others that actually has helped you guys be successful. So thank you. That's really great, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Thank you to Charlie on the AV as well, and thank you to Grace and Steve and the Silicon Brighton crew for organising this so well, and thank you for you guys for being a great audience. And I hope to see you at the next Tech Jumpstart in a couple of months.